Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump is going to take impeachment to the Supreme Court. The House wants Don McGahn, the White House legal counsel, to testify. The problem is William Barr has already stated, you already impeached Trump. So the Justice Department stated, why didn't you have Don McGahn? Why didn't you delay impeachment if Don McGahn's testimony was so important? You obviously believed you had enough with all the diplomats that basically had no knowledge. And what Sondland said, yeah, the only thing Trump ever told me was that he wants no quid pro quo. And then there's one impeachment witness that heard something not on the phone. He was near the telephone and heard Trump's voice. So, and then you have another impeachment, Bill Taylor, ambassador, who said that he had heard from somebody that somebody else said something regarding Trump. So the whole thing's nonsense. They don't have anything. They have not proven that Trump withheld military assistance for the specific goal of interfering in the election by investigating his direct political rival. This is part of the neuroses that Democrats have regarding interference that they fabricated with the Mueller probe, which isn't anywhere in the articles of impeachment. I wonder why, because it's all nonsense. But anyway, you're going to get maybe a late Christmas present from the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court already ruled in Trump's favor regarding his financial records. And that was Ruth Bader Ginsburg also ruled on that and gave Trump a win. So they temporarily blocked the House demand for financial records. See, they accuse Trump of a crime without a crime having been committed. And then they say, well, we demand this testimony, your financial records. He's never been accused specifically of a crime. The only thing they're alluding to is that he shouldn't have gotten loans. Well, that's between him and Deutsche Bank, or him and the bank that he works with to get loans for his hotels. But anyway, the interesting thing here is a district court ruled that Don McGahn has to testify. This is a Reason article. Has the president been impeached? The Supreme Court may have to decide. DOJ argued that the impeachment vote may affect the resolution of the subpoena issued to Don McGahn. And then it goes on to say that the Supreme Court is going to decide whether President Trump can invoke executive privilege. I suspect this argument is a preview of the arguments the president would make to the Supreme Court if other impeachment-related cases arrive. So, moreover, DOJ contends the court no longer needs to decide if, quote, the subpoena was ever validly justified by the House's impeachment power in the first place. DOJ contends that the case is essentially moot. The subpoena was premised on the House's oversight and legislative powers apart from its impeachment powers. More importantly, DOJ contends that the court no longer needs to decide. Okay, so second, DOJ explains that the impeachment vote does not have one immediate implication. The proceedings should slow down. In short, the House has already voted on its articles of impeachment. They've yet to give the articles of impeachment to the Senate. I wonder why. Because they have a weak case. Pelosi and Schumer are bluffing. They're losing miserably on this. Polls show that President Trump has won. There, a Daily Beast, a Politico, a whole bunch of articles have been written saying, oh my God, what happens next? Is Trump going to be unleashed? Well, they impeached him based on nonsense. They couldn't prove their case. They don't have any documents that state a quid pro quo. He's not on video like Joe Biden in front of the Council on Foreign Relations saying, if you don't do what I demand, you will not get this money. That's what Joe Biden stated. And he just happened to force the Ukraine to fire a prosecutor that was looking into his son's company, or the company funneling millions to his son. But anyway, second, DOJ explains that the impeachment vote does not have one immediate implication that proceedings should slow down. In short, the House has already voted on its articles of impeachment. Therefore, expedited consideration of this subpoena is no longer necessary. DOJ strongly suggests that the House impeachment investigation is over. So, one way the House and Democrats and Pelosi are going to get around that is to impeach him again. So, they can't get Don McGahn because the president has invoked executive privilege. So, they're not going to get it doesn't matter if a district court rules that that McCann has to testify. First of all, they want McCann just to torment Trump. There's nothing that he knows that these ambassadors and these scholars don't know. He never pressured the Ukraine. And first of all, what is Don McGahn going to say? Yeah, I helped him. He's not going to be like, what's his name in Watergate, John Dean. What's he gonna say? Oh yes, here's what I know. The president was telling me that he was so frightened of Biden that he wanted to withhold military assistance, and I knew this, and I didn't tell anyone. You think Don McGahn is going to say that? Of course not. First of all, it never happened. He doesn't care about Biden. Clinton's his direct political rival. He knows this. Clinton's going to run, and she's going to become nominee, and I don't care when she runs, and I don't care how it happens, but Clinton will become nominee. The impeachment serves one purpose and one purpose only, to deceive the American public into thinking that Democrats really have a functioning political party. Don't you see? Biden is number one in the polls, and Trump wanted to go after him. This is fantasy. Biden would get obliterated politically if he went. Well, it would be a landslide. You would get like the biggest blue states, and then he would lose miserably in the Electoral College. Biden wouldn't even get the popular vote. So when Clinton runs, she'll probably get the popular vote. Biden would not even get the popular vote, in my view. Nobody thinks that Biden's going to defeat Trump because he's not going to be nominee, number one. Clinton's going to be nominee. But the notion, even the other day when he was getting impeached, he was in a Michigan rally. Notice the difference between Democrats and Trump. Democrats are like, we're impeaching you. Trump's like, oh, I'm going to win this state, just like I won this state in 2016. I'm going to win swing states. And in swing states, voters don't like and don't want impeachment, and they certainly don't want to remove the president. But anyway, a really interesting take is the SCOTUS blog right here. Third, Nixon. So the Supreme Court ruled against Nixon because there was a criminal, a crime that took place. The Watergate break-in was an actual crime. It was a burglary. That is a criminal act. A burglary is a criminal act. Okay? There was no high confidence assessment. So when the intelligence agencies and the Office of Director of National Intelligence and the Department of Homeland Security reports say we are moderately to highly confident that the DNC was hacked by Russia, that is not, they're not certain of what took place. You know the plumbers broke into Watergate and the Watergate building, and a burglary took place. Then you know there was a cover-up. That's what Watergate and Nixon, that's what happened with Nixon and Watergate. A criminal act took place that was directly tied to the president, and the president covered it up. Trump, Russia, they couldn't link Trump. They had a dossier, and they had gossip from Alexander Downer. And they had a whole bunch of process crimes. And they had memos from Comey that started a special counsel where they still couldn't link Trump to anything. And then they had a Mueller report that none of the Mueller report is in the articles of impeachment. Want to know why? Because the whole thing is nonsense. The whole thing was fantasy. They made up and fabricated and set up Trump. They made up everything. They connected dots because in their mind, Trump couldn't win, so they had to create a story. The proof is that the articles of nobody was indicted on working with Russia. Nobody was indicted on collusion. It was all process crimes by people who had anti-Trump text messages, 17 deliberate omissions and falsified statements to deceive FISA judges within 3 FISA applications on Carter Page. But they impeached President Trump, and none of the specific allegations within the Mueller report or the past 3 years are incorporated in the articles of impeachment. Why? Because they lost miserably with that. It was a complete failure and debacle. It was another political defeat that they, media just swept under the rug and tried to spin into a victory somehow. Now they're impeaching President Trump, but they can't find a crime, just like with Trump and Facebook ads. They can't find a crime. So what they say is, this happened. When cash flows to Clinton Foundation amid Russian uranium deal, they can't put 2 and 2 together. No. But if Trump withholds military assistance, it's not to ensure that it gets into the right hands. It's because he's going after Biden. But that's not a crime. It's not a crime because they haven't proved that Trump withheld military assistance because he's going after Biden. And I don't even know. They haven't even linked a legal statute. Maybe it's the 18 U.S. Code 371, the statute that I write about Comey and McCabe eventually being indicted on, in the Federalist. That's my article. You can click on my article, my author page in the Federalist. That's below in the pinned comment. But they haven't proved that he did that because he was worried about Biden. Biden literally engaged in a quid pro quo and forced the removal of a prosecutor in the Ukraine. And he's on video saying the Ukrainians did not want that to happen. They did not want to fire that prosecutor Shokin. That's in the actual tape. And he says, you don't believe me? Call the president. He implicates President Obama into it and then says, I'm leaving in a couple of hours. If you do not fire the prosecutor, you will not get $1 billion in loan guarantees. But guess what? That prosecutor was also investigating the corporation that his son was a board member of. The corruption is obvious. Democrats and media say, no, you haven't proven anything. You know what? Everyone wanted that prosecutor fired. Well, so what? And by the way, was that official government policy sanctioned by President Obama because he brought up the president? Where's the evidence that it was official government policy to fire that specific prosecutor? Because it seemed like it was off the cuff. He was just leaving in a couple of hours and then that's it. Where's the official government foreign policy towards the Ukraine that said that President Obama, who decides foreign policy, it's the president that decides foreign policy, wanted that prosecutor fired? Anyway, the interesting thing here, this is a SCOTUS blog. Third, Nixon held that the president's interest in the confidentiality of his own communications, as memorialized in the tape sought by the subpoena, was outweighed by, quote, our historic commitment to the rule of law. The rule of law in that case was a break-in. That was a criminal act. The rule of law in this case is a phone conversation that nobody has direct knowledge of. And the assumption, the mere assumption, because they haven't proved that he withheld military assistance to go after his political rival. People regurgitate that as if it actually happened. You think Trump is worried about Biden? You think he cares about Biden? Nobody cares about the guy who defeated Cornflakes. He's like a walking, how many people are wearing no malarkey hats? Does anyone even know that the slogan, the tagline, the political phrase is no malarkey? It's the no malarkey bus tour. Nobody cares about Biden's candidacy. Nobody. I mean, if Clinton doesn't enter until she will enter, but let's say she enters right before Super Tuesday, he might not even win Iowa or New Hampshire. So it's like, it'll be Clinton eventually the nominee. I wrote about that in the Huffington Post. In 2017, I'm the only person on planet Earth and on YouTube who predicted accurately that Clinton will be nominee. And then she'll lose and run again in 2024. But anyway, this is really interesting. Really, really interesting. So third, Nixon held that the president's interest in the... So the Supreme Court's going to rule in Trump's favor. And here's why. In Nixon specifically, quote, when the ground for asserting privilege as to the subpoenaed materials sought for use in a criminal trial is based only on the generalized interest in confidentiality, it cannot prevail over the fundamental demands of due process of law in the fair administration of criminal justice.
Where's the criminal justice in a phone conversation
where they got the military assistance? And President Zelensky stated there was no quid pro quo, no leverage, no pressure. And Poroshenko, President Poroshenko, stated before President Zelensky he was never pressured either. And guess what? There was an April call before the July 25th call. Oopsie, you lose again, Democrats. Sorry. Anyone who regurgitates the line that Trump wanted to investigate Biden to get a leg up on Biden is possibly one of the biggest imbeciles on the planet. Well, there's a lot of people. So possibly just completely devoid of any type of critical thinking skills. Give me your thoughts below. The Supreme Court is going to rule in favor of President Trump because this is not about criminal justice. This is not about the rule of law. This is purely about Democrats who've convinced themselves that Trump went after his political rival because he withheld military assistance. Well, his excuse is the same excuse as Biden. Biden stated that he forced a prosecutor out because of corruption. Trump has stated he withheld military assistance because of corruption. Oh, you believe Biden, but you don't believe Trump? Sorry, that's not criminal justice. That's pure politics. Pure partisan politics. Sorry. And they got the assistance anyway. So, where was the crime? President Zelensky, if he stated that he was pressured, yeah, that would be tough. That would be tough to defend. But he stated he wasn't pressured. So all they have to do is go to the Supreme Court and say, look, the president of the Ukraine has literally stated there's no pressure. There are no eyewitnesses. There are no documents stating that Trump was afraid of Biden, because that's the underlying theme here. He's going after his political rival. He's withholding assistance. He's trying to get another country to investigate the Bidens. That's the underlying theme here. They haven't proved that. And the notion is absurd because Trump laughs at Biden, as do most Democrats. So they impeach Trump not because of a crime, because of the assumption that Trump thinks like them. Because they look at the Democratic debate and they say, oh yeah, look at those 20 wonderful people. Oh yeah, Biden is the cream of the crop. He just rise to the top. Trump doesn't think like that. He thinks they're all buffoons, and he's right. Give me your thoughts below. And the Supreme Court's going to look at this and be like, okay, yeah, in Nixon, there was an actual crime and there was a rule of law. You had to actually, you're protecting yourself from an actual crime. You're trying to prevent evidence in an actual criminal trial there was a predicate crime. There was a crime that took place. Here, there is no crime that took place. It's all assumption, innuendo, gossip, hearsay, no document showing that President Trump was afraid of Biden, no document showing he withheld assistance specifically to go after Biden. They got the assistance, and President Zelensky, the man who was supposed to have been leveraged and and pressured by Trump, has stated publicly he wasn't. Give me your thoughts below. Merry Christmas, everyone. Check out H.A. Goodman's other channel. The Supreme Court is going to rule in Trump's favor regarding this. Give me your thoughts.